Hey everyone, this is smpratte. In this video I'll be talking to you about how to invest in Pokemon. For those that didn't watch the intro video or don't know who I am, quick summary. Been collecting Pokemon cards, sports memorabilia for at least a decade now. My primary expertise is in Pokemon. Some of the main points I want to hit in this video are going to be about the market of Pokemon, the history, current climate, and where I think the future of the market will be. I also want to define investing and or how to better collect in the hobby. I also want to give you my long-term strategy in relation to that. If you're going to be a collector and or you want to invest, and also how to better your business and or if you're starting a business. And I also want to give you my motto and catchphrase that I use pretty much whenever I'm buying a card, especially when there isn't a determined fair market value for that item. So yeah, let me preface all this by saying this video won't be as literal as, say, how to change a spark plug. When you're discussing how to invest in pretty much anything, it's going to be a more abstract topic. With that said, I'll try to be as concise and straight to the point as I can be. So yeah, the market of Pokemon is 20 years old now. It started initially in 1996, and the release of the trading cards in the US were in 1999. I will primarily be discussing the trading card aspect of Pokemon. In 1999, that release was so exponential that sport card sets were discontinued. And what I mean by that is the demand of Pokemon cards was so over the top that they were printing so many of them that these sports sets literally couldn't be printed. I always think that's a good tidbit to illustrate how massive that frenzy was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I would say that lasted till about 2001, 2002, somewhere in there. And about 2003, 2005 was the lowest point for Pokemon. I actually came in right at the tail end of that, and the market was much different then. It was pretty much a few collectors, few sellers, that's about it. Things were a lot slower. But since that point, about 05, 06, I think things started to gradually increase. I would say 2011, 2012 is then when they significantly increased. And that's for a multitude of reasons. The first one being social media. It really came into its own around then. The other one being PSA. It's a massive influence in the hobby. I actually have a separate video where I'll talk about PSA in relation to Pokemon. And then the third being people my age, a little younger, a little bit older, started getting their careers, started developing economic identity, and they decided to spend their disposable income on this. With that said, the main criticism I received along the run, I'm sure people my age, a little younger, probably received a similar criticism. That criticism was, Scott, Pokemon cards were made for kids. And they're absolutely right. Pokemon cards were made for kids. So were baseball cards. So were basketball cards. So were every trading card ever. The reality is that when a market is established like it has in Pokemon or sports cards, whatever it may be, those adults who grew up with it tend to buy back the product that they grew up with when they get older. Like I said earlier, when they have an economic identity or get into a career, they usually spend their disposable income on it. This is nothing new. Pokemon is just the new product for that 90s generation. It's been going on for over a century. Baseball cards have been around since the late 1800s. A great example is this Honus Wagner right here, sold for $2.1 million. It's a PSA 5. I don't think kids are messing with a $2.1 million card. Needless to say, Pokemon is established. The market is here. It is here to stay. In my opinion, we are just in the new foundation of the new market, and that is mostly due to PSA in relation to Pokemon. But yeah, for me, I feel more content now with Pokemon than I ever have in my entire existence in the hobby. With that said, investing in Pokemon is something that isn't going to be an instant success. Matter of fact, investing in general is geared towards long term, okay? If you are coming into this expecting to make fast money, expecting to never lose money, you're in the wrong place, okay? With Pokemon, just like any hobby, you need to give it a good 5 years if you're looking for that steady investment. I can't think of a card from 5 years ago that hasn't grown to some degree. I know 5 years for younger guys, a lot can happen. You could probably get a whole degree from a university. You could probably start your new career in that time. But the bottom line is, if I could talk to myself from back in the day when I was in college or whatever point in time, I would tell myself that number one general advice that I would give to you is to be patient. In relation to 5 years, you have to be patient. A good 5-year example is I had a PSA 9 first edition Charizard probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I was trying to sell it. I was trying to sell it for $260, okay? Now that card sells for probably $2,000. It's a big disparity there. That's a huge disparity. I think everyone, it's safe to say, would want a $2,000 anything versus a $200 anything. And that's a lesson for me and myself in patience. If I would have waited that 5 years instead of, being impatient or whatever the reason was, I was maybe, a little too narrowed in. I need to take a step back, relax. I'm sure that happens to everyone all the time when they're collecting or investing. They get too focused on something. Just take a step back, realize if you have that job, you're making steady income, just pace it out. For me, the ideal long-term strategy that I wanted to hit on is if you have a career or a job where you can afford to spend X amount of money per week, per month, whatever it may be, $100, $1,000, maybe even more. If you are in that position, you can collect pretty much anything you want within 5 years. You can have it all. Anything you desire, as long as you stay the course, as long as you're pragmatic, you can probably collect pretty much anything in this hobby. That is the ideal position to be in. When I was in school, when I was working part-time, having that consistent river of income, buying things on the side, collecting them on the side, over that time, I started to acquire inventory, whether or not I realized it. I started to collect doubles of things. I'm like, maybe I want a PSA 10 of that, or maybe I want, another sealed copy of that item. And at a certain point in time, I'm like, I have all these doubles, I've developed an inventory, maybe I should start selling them. And then it became a part-time thing, selling items. And then now it's a full-time job. And why I'm emphasizing this timeline is because I think if you are looking to either collect, invest, and or start a business, start as a collector. For me, there's two pillars in the hobby that support the foundation of the market. Those are businesses and collectors. For me, I started as a pure collector. I just collected because I had a genuine interest in the card and the artwork, the history, etc. And like I said, I started to get doubles of these cards, and then it started to transition into this business. I think this is the healthiest timeline, the healthiest transition you can have into having a successful long-term business in the hobby. Why I say that is because this is where you're going to develop your core knowledge. Knowledge is what is going to set you apart from that guy who might even have more capital than you, but that experience and knowledge and understanding the subtle trends of the market, the subtle trends of what cards will sell, what cards might sell, what might not sell, what the price point will be, even if you're looking to collect. You get that all here in collecting. To better illustrate this, I get people who ask me once in a while, what should I do if I want to start a business? I actually had a guy call me once about this. He had maybe $1,000 to $5,000 in his pocket, very enthusiastic, loves the hobby, but you're not going to make it. The probability is not on your side. If you're coming out of the gate with no experience, no knowledge, just a ton of enthusiasm, it's probably not going to work. You're probably going to have a couple sales, you probably have your peaks, but you're going to have a lot of valleys, and you're going to wonder, what's going on. Where a lot of the guys who've been doing this a long time, who are well established in the hobby, someone like myself, Rusty, Brian Japan, people along those lines, they probably started, actually I know them personally, they did start as collectors, or they started over here acquiring knowledge and then having this slow, steady growth. That's what you want. Even if you're not trying to transition into a business and you just are a collector, and or maybe you think, maybe I do want to buy something that'll be more valuable in the future, collecting alone is inherently investing. Whether or not you realize it, this is something I had to learn growing up. You are making investment strategies with these cards. When you buy a sealed box, you're thinking, should I open it? If I do open it, should I open all the packs? If I do open them, should I grade them? You're going through investment strategies whether you're conscious of it or not. It's inherent in collecting. With that said, these two pillars hold up the hobby. There's one term that's used a lot in the community that I think indicates a lot of aspects of what's going on right now in this healthy / booming market, if you will, or growing market. That term is a reseller, and that term is redundant. The proper term is a flipper, because all businesses have to resell. They buy secondhand and or from a distributor. It's a redundant term. Anyway, flipper is someone who buys something and immediately sells it. I'm talking a month, talking a week, some guys the same day. This isn't really a bad thing once in a while, but you don't want this being a main pillar or a main support for the market. If this were the majority of the market, I couldn't think of a more cut and dry example of a fickle market. This is not what you want. Luckily, Pokemon, this is not happening. The majority of the market are not these guys. This is a sign of opportunity. This is a sign of growth. There's a lot of people who do buy and sell very quickly. This is not an investment. You are not investing in doing this. If you imagine having a portfolio, you wouldn't be flying through stock every month. You wouldn't buy and sell all of your stock every month. That's extremely aggressive. You'd have to be some guru to make this a full-time gig. No one does, okay? Guys do it on the side, nothing wrong with that. There's actually nothing wrong inherently with flipping. The only problematic aspect is you don't want it as one of the main pillars supporting the market, okay? It's something that'll always exist, and it's usually a good sign of growth, but you just don't want it as a majority. With that said, my motto when you're trying to collect or when you're trying to invest in any item is simply this: the older, the rarer, the minter, the better. If you just go through that little syllogism, if you will, you'll be safe, or you'll be better off. It might not always be 100% right. I'm sure there's going to be some anal, retentive, cynical internet douche who's going to be like, there's this one card though that sells for more than this older card. Of course, yeah. This isn't some, physical theory of gravity, something like that. It's just a catchphrase that I use that has always helped me. If you had to give one all-inclusive phrase, it's the older, the rarer, the minter, the better. And what that includes is the older the card, typically the older the client. All of those older cards from original base set. Even if you go into other hobbies like let's look at Magic, Alpha, Beta, who do you think's buying those cards? People with deeper pockets, which means the older clients. That's what you're hitting with the older cards. The old trophy cards. Here's a great example of a newer trophy card. I got some old ones in the back there. This one probably will not realize the price of, let's say, a Tropical Mega Battle or an SSB. That's just the reality of inertia. That's just the reality of markets. The next aspect of rarer is something I think people get twisted a lot. I actually have a video that goes into depth about how to value your cards, how it's not primarily just rarity. Rarity is definitely a strong aspect, but it's not the only aspect. So you got older, rarer, minter, which involves the condition. So the condition of an item, this one's probably in mint condition, but overall a PSA item is what you want. That's going to give you the objective standard. So if you have, let's say, a PSA, like earlier, PSA 9 first edition Charizard, that's going to sell for a lot more than some guy saying his Charizard first edition's in mint condition. Okay, so you got older, rarer, minter, the better. All those aspects combined means a better investment. Better investment by and large to, new product that's released. I don't know if I have any on hand. Some of these Japanese boxes, they're still undefined. You don't know where they're going to go. So yeah, to recap on everything, the market right now with Pokemon is very healthy. I think the future of it, we are just in the new platform. We are just getting into guys who are getting into their careers. I don't think the trend is going to go away. With my over 10 years of experience, I've never been more confident in the market than I am now, coupled with PSA and how PSA really defines the price points for item, which I will talk about in another video on its own. Investing in Pokemon is all about patience. I advise to start as a collector and or someone who acquires knowledge. Knowledge and experience is your meal ticket. That's what's going to get you through everything. That's what separates you from the next guy. Okay. And then my catchphrase again is the older, the rarer, the minter, the better. With all this said, if you want me to expand on anything, you want me to talk less about something, if you have a topic for me you want me to discuss in another video, let me know. I'll try to do my best to answer them with the time I have. Feel free to message me here or in the link below with the forum. I'm usually more active on the forum. It's easier for me to check. But yeah, hopefully this is helpful for you. Any questions, comments, just let me know. Till next time.